Mediums are a good way to get texture and a variety of surface. I'm going to go ahead and lay down some of the different types of mediums that you're going to be working with onto this paper. It may be a little difficult to see because we're working white on white, but when we get to the glazing, which is laying thin transparent veils of color, the texture will really pull out. Our first medium is the gloss medium, and this is going to give you a really shiny type surface. It's going to be more of a smooth application. Then also, if you don't want a gloss surface, we have in this little bowl, I've got some matte medium, which is very similar to the gloss medium in viscosity and consistency, except that it has more of a matte finish. One of your heavier type mediums is going to be the modeling paste. The modeling paste is really great for building up thick impasto-like surfaces. You can really pull the brush strokes out. The other nice thing about the modeling paste is that you can also draw and carve back into it while it's wet. So I also have some of this fine pumice gel. There's lots of sand type mediums, things that have other bits of materials included into them to give them a really gritty surface. So this is a fine pumice gel, but you may have purchased a coarse. This may be a little easier for you to see. It's slightly gray, but it's going to give a gritty type texture. I also, sometimes I like to let my modeling paste dry out a little bit, because you can also get really interesting textures from that. This one's really dry, but it's a way to add granules into your modeling paste to give a really kind of textural surface. So with any of these mediums, you can also add in things such as sand or dirt or anything that might give you an interesting texture. I'm going to lay down some more of the modeling paste and include some of these gritty bits. So this is going to give you a very three-dimensional surface. So we'll let these dry, and as soon as they're dry, we'll be able to glaze over top. Now that your texture mediums are dry, you can go ahead and begin the glazing process. A glaze is a thin, transparent film of color that overlays another texture or another paint surface. You can make glazes out of lots of types of medium, oil paints, acrylic glazes, but for our purposes, we're going to use the etching inks. You may want to thin these down with a lot of mineral spirits, so it's a much more watery consistency. This really allows the glaze to fall into the crevices and surface of the texture medium. So to begin, I'm just going to take a rag and dip it in my mineral spirits and thin down some of the ink. You can then apply this to the texture surfaces, and you'll see how different surfaces react differently to the glazing. You'll also want to notice how the porous surface of the paper really takes much more of the color than the surfaces themselves. Another advantage of using the etching inks as a glazing, because they're oil-based, they're going on top of our polymer mediums. They won't really adhere into those mediums until they're completely dry. So in the meantime, you can push and pull them around on the surface as much as you may like. You may want to also experiment with more opaque colors and more transparent colors to see the different types of surface you'll get. You can also apply these with a paintbrush. And to really force some of the texture to come out, you can just go over top with straight mineral spirits, and it'll really push those glazes into the recesses of the medium. Especially here on the thick modeling paste and some chunks of dried modeling paste, you can really see how it pulls out the texture and enriches it. So now I've gone ahead and applied several layers of glazes all over the entire test sheet. You can really see how the different mediums hold the glazes. I think one of the most exciting ones here is the modeling paste, because it is a somewhat porous surface, really sucks up the color, where some of your matte mediums and your gel mediums are going to have a little more of a subtle effect. You get a lot of nice textures and surfaces when layers and layers of glazes are built up. And because these are not completely dry yet, if you find any area to be too severe or too intense in color, you can take some of your rags and wipe them down. So you can really push and pull it on the surface of the polymer-based mediums quite a lot. It's really going to take in the porous areas of the paper to a much higher degree.